The government has to come in and, in Rousseau's language, force you to be free, force the rest of us to endorse what you have seen in being authentic to yourself. But if I don't want to enforce that, well, then I need to be re-educated. George Grant has been described as Canada's most famous, maybe most idiosyncratic, most characteristic political thinker. So very much born into what we might today call the Laurentian elite. But Grant ended up as a full-on critic of the Laurentian elite that he had been born into. George Grant is amazingly timely today because the message that he gave in 1965, the subtitle of the book was The Defeat of Canadian Nationalism, seemed to be obviously wrong. I think Grant would say that this is exactly the problem, that we don't realize that our national self-understanding is under threat from the United States until someone like Donald Trump comes along. I think Trudeau's vision was that Canada is going to lead the world into a bold new era of post-nationalism. But I think Grant would say that any kind of ideology that is hoping to lead the world in some kind of way is not going to be distinctively Canadian. And in fact, is not going to be distinctive to any particular nation if it is something that can be exported around the world. Liberalism is going to say that we don't have any obligations beyond those that we have individually chosen. And progressivism is going to say those choices that we make for ourselves, particularly about our identity, needs to be endorsed by the nation. We don't get to choose our family. We don't go around to, all the different houses on the block and test them out and see, I wonder if this would be a better family for me. Aristotle is going to say that politics is inseparable from moral philosophy because it's in our national life that we learn to be moral with other people.
The directors of General Motors Corporation and the followers of Marcuse sailed down the same river in different boats.
Well, if a lot of people, for instance, have a secular religion of wokeness, well, then that's where corporations are going to go because it costs them almost nothing to virtue signal to progressivism. Conservatives around the world are starting to understand that the market does not necessarily work in favor of the nation, and it doesn't necessarily work in favor of conservatism. If we're prosperous, but we're not distinctive, then we're not going to be remembered. Because if we're simply prosperous, people will say, boy, they sure wasted it on looking like everybody else. They didn't really have a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose.
And you're going to use politics to enforce that vision on me. That's sounding awfully totalitarian and tyrannical of you.
When progressivist politics gives this impression that this is where ultimate happiness is to be found, well, you are inevitably going to be disappointed as a state. We need to take away more and more of your liberties. I think one of the reasons that the rule of law is so important is because it recognizes the fallibility of human beings.
Reason is everywhere and always a slave of the passions.
The human soul is always looking for ultimate things.
There's the sort of modern social progressivism that says it's almost individual expressivism, where I need to express myself to be fully me, and now I need to use the power of the state to protect my ability to express myself.
Force you to be free. In other words, force the rest of us to endorse what you have seen in being authentic to yourself. And that is what is going to bring about true freedom. But if I don't want to enforce that, well, then I need to be re-educated.
Mary Harrington often says, she's a writer in the UK, she talks about liberalism seeing humans as meat Legos. just simply interchangeable units within this great industrial machine.
Modern science is very good at telling us that. It's not good at telling us how, and it's really bad. In fact, it refuses the question of why. Nature gives the purposes to us. And if we come to understand what nature is and what supernature is, and we order ourselves to that, that is going to be the recipe for human flourishing.